Today is Monday, August 8th, 2022. It is also day 182 of Blender, and today I'm going to do a geometry node text animation. So I'm just going to hide the spreadsheet, click on new for a new geometry node system, disconnect the input from the output, do Shift A to add a string to curves node. So that should be the last one over here, and then I'll connect the curve instances into the geometry so I can see it in the viewport, and I don't see the string in the viewport because I don't have it set to anything. So I'll do something like from Sarai, and then I'll do Shift A and add a transform node to rotate my string along the x-axis by 90 degrees so that it looks like this, right? The x-axis, by the way, is the red one. Alright, now I'll do Shift A to give the string some faces, and I'll change it to n-gons, the fill type, and then I'll do Shift A and do extrude mesh to give the string some thickness, and I'll change that value to be 0.1 so it's not that much. If I look at the back of the string, I notice that it's not filled on the inside even though I do have a fill curve, and to fix that I can just do Shift A and get a join geometry node, and what that does, I could just put it over here and it's going to join the extrude mesh node and also the fill curve node once I connect it to it, and it's going to now fill the back. Alright, so then I'm going to focus on the font. I already have this font from thefont.com downloaded. It's by Darrell Flood. It's called Cute Notes. So I downloaded that so I can go to the folder over here and go to desktop. I have a folder of fonts and I believe it's this one, and then it's looking like this. Okay, so then at this point I'm going to start with the material. So I'll do set material and put that right in here and just kind of select the first material I see. I'll do Control S to save this blend file. Alright, and once I save it, I'm going to go to shading so that I can work with the materials. And I already have a color palette set up for me, so these are kind of the colors that I'm going to work with. Probably, if not, then I'll just change them. I'm just going to copy one of them and then come back over here. So far I have a principled BSDF and a material output. So I only need two things over here, so I'll do Shift A and get a color ramp and connect that color into the base color over here. And then I'll also need an object information node, which I can just get by doing Shift A and getting an object info node. And then this is what I'm seeing so far. So first things first, I'm just going to connect the random select thing to the factor so that the colors are randomly distributed right among the instances, right among the letters. So I'm going to select the first tag and then select the the color box and change the hex to be whatever color I just put in there, and then I'll do so for kind of the rest of the colors. I'll select this one, right, and I'll just select the box, change it to whatever color I want. And here's the thing, I don't want a linear gradient of those colors. I want each of the letters to be either or color, and so I'm going to change that to constant, so it's going to be either or color now. I'm just going to go ahead and pick a few more colors. Let's see what works. I'm going to add a new one by pressing on the plus sign and then continuing to change the color box hex code to whatever color I get from there. Let's see, so I could also use maybe this one, something like that, instead of, I don't really like this color, so I'm going to change it to be something else. Let me see if I can get another color. Maybe like a green like that. Something like that. I think that's fine. Alright, so now I'm done with the material preview. I'm going to go back to geometry nodes to kind of work on the animation part. So Shift A, and I'm going to get a translate instances node, and I'm going to put that in here, and what that does is just translate my instances. So if I move it on the X, it moves all my instances, right, which is all the letters left and right. Y is up and down, and Z is forward and backward. But I don't want all my letters to move at the same time and to the same place, and so what I'll do is I'll go to layout, Shift A, and add an empty sphere, and I'll go to object data properties over here in the properties panel and change the display to be a single arrow, and then I'll just go back over here and drag the empty right from the outliner into my geometry node system for the string. And what I'll do is basically the translation is the amount or the distance that each letter is going to move, right? And I want that distance to be equal, not that distance, that value to be equal to the distance between each of the letters and the empty, because the empty, right, I'm going to call it a controller, is what's going to go through all the letters and it's going to control the movement of each of the letters. And so I'm going to get the position node, right, shift a position, and this one shift a vector math, because I'm getting the distance between two vectors, so the location of the empty and the position of each letter. And that distance is what's going to determine the translation of the letters, basically how far they move. But I don't want them to move in this weird like axes. I need them to move up and down. So I'll do Shift A and get a combine XYZ node, and I'll make sure that that's connected to the Y. So now it's moving right in the Y axis. Now here's the thing. I noticed that the closer I am to a letter like F, the lower it is, and the farther I am from a letter like I, the empty by the way, the higher it is. And I want the opposite to happen, because as I go through the letters, I want them to be going up right when I'm closer to it, not coming down like the F is. So I'll just add a color ramp. So I'll do Shift A and add a color ramp and put that right before the combine XYZ. And I'm just going to go to the arrow and flip the color ramp. And now, perfect, right? Now the farther I am from the letter, the higher it is. I mean, the lower it is, and the closer I am to the letter, the higher it is. So as I go through my animation, they start bouncing, right? They start going up or going higher, which is pretty cool. All right, so then I also noticed that if I go through at a constant speed, I notice that they're coming down and up at the same speed, but I don't want that. I want it to be kind of like, you know, they go up fast and they stay there for a while and they come back down fast. So I'll do Shift A and add a float curve to simulate that motion. And I'll just go ahead and kind of move it kind of this way, and let's see if that makes things a little, yeah, so it's going actually really fast upwards. All right, and then I'm going to, let's see, if I do this, now it's a little bit better. Beautiful. Right, so I kind of did the opposite. Do this and it'll work. All right, now I think that's okay. That's pretty much it for the movement. And now for the rendering, right, for the rendering part, I'm going to first do Shift A mesh plane to add a backdrop. I'm going to press S to scale it, G to grab it, X to grab along the X axis, edit mode by pressing tab, click on edge select the back edge, E to extrude, Z to extrude along the Z axis, which in this case is the blue axis. And then I'm going to go to the wrench, which is modifier properties, and I'll add a bevel to add basically a bevel, and I'll add a, you know, increase the amounts in the segments, and then I'll apply it, right click, shift, shade smooth, and then S and then X to scale along the X axis, bring this a little bit down. I think I'm just going to leave it kind of like over here, and I think that's good. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my timeline, press N to pull up the end panel. My video, I want it to be 80 frames, and so I'm going to change the N to be 80, and I want my video to start, or I want my empty to start where the video is going to start, where it's basically going to be where none of the letters are moving. So I want my empty to move right before it starts affecting the letter F, which is kind of right about here, and I'm going to hover over that location, which is negative 1.0396 meters for me on the x-axis, and I'm going to press I to insert that location keyframe on my timeline, and it appears as a diamond shaped yellow thingy, right? Okay, on my timeline. And then by the end of the video, I want my empty to be right at the end. I want it to have gone through the whole of the letters and stop right after it stops affecting the letter I, which is about 9.1409 meters for me on the x-axis. So I'm going to hover over that location and press I to insert that location keyframe. Now if I press on play, it's going to go through the letters by itself, and that's what it's going to look like in the render. Now I'm going to do Control S to save that, and I'm going to go now to the rendered preview, and then I'm going to try to figure out a color that I can use for the backdrop when that loads. Alright, so this is what it's looking like right now. So at this point, I'm just going to go to front view by pressing the button under the escape key and hovering over front. And I'm going to kind of just move along that line and just kind of move over here. And I'm going to do Control-Alt Numpad 0 to align my camera to my view. If that doesn't work, go to Edit, Preferences, go to Input, and make sure Emulate Numpad is on. And if that doesn't work, it's probably because you don't have a camera in your scene, so do Shift-A and add a camera. Alright, to get out of this view, you press the middle mouse button. To go back into the view, you press on 0. Alright, but I think I like it the way it is. It's really cute. So, yes, I think I'm just going to go ahead and move it a little bit more downwards. Maybe just a little bit more to get it kind of over here in the center. Control-Alt Numpad 0, and I think that's a little bit better. Now for the backdrop, I really have to find a color for it, so I'm going to go to Material, Properties, click on New, and just kind of play around with some colors until I kind of see what I like, and I'll come back when I find that out. Alright, so I have a color here temporarily. I'll show it to you in a minute, but maybe let me play with the lighting a bit. So I'll change it to a sun. I'll change the power to be something like 3, G to grab it, Y to grab it along the Y-axis, and then just kind of rotate it so that it kind of hits the letters, and then I can do 0, and I'll kind of like see it this way now, and it's a little bit nicer. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, and then now let me kind of play around with the background color. Alright, so I decided to go with this color. It's 260C1A for the hex code. It's kind of like a purplish violet color. Alright, and that's it for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to Output Properties and go to Output and select a folder for all of my 80 frames to render. And I'm just going to call it 8, I don't know what's today's date, 8/22, and then I'll call it From Sarai, because that's what it says. Go here, accept, and then make sure the file format is PNG, Control S, and then I'll hit render animation, and all of those 80 images should render in that folder as PNG images. Alright, and I'll come back. Alright, so if I go to the folder where I told all the frames to render to, I can see that all the 80 frames are there. So I'm just going to exit out of here, exit out of there. In Blender, I'm going to go up, scroll down, go to the plus sign, video editing, scroll this all the way to the left, and then add an image sequence. And I'm going to go to the folder that I had, which should be somewhere over here. Let's see. 8. Okay, over here. Select the first image, scroll down, shift select last image, add image strip, and then it's basically just putting all of the images together, which is super cool. Back in Output Properties, I'll go to Output and then select a folder where the video should output. I'm just going to create one, call it video, and then click accept within the images. The format should be FFmpeg video, encoding should be for the container, it should be MPEG-4, and the output quality should be high quality. So there's just 3 things you have to look out for. Control S to save, and then render animation, and it should render super quickly because it's just putting all the images together, and that video should end up in that folder that you told it to end up in. And this is the final result. Bye.